everybody, and welcome to another episode of Connecting B2C with your host, Bennett Clark, and I'm Alex Acuff. Today with us, our guest is Kathy Fowler. She is from Oklahoma City, and I'm going to hand it over to Kathy to tell you a little bit about her. Kathy, welcome to the show, and tell us a little bit about where you are, who you work for, how long you've been in the business.
Okay, thanks. And thank you guys so much for hosting me on this. I'm really excited to be your second guest. But my name is Kathy Fowler. I actually live in Yukon, which is a suburb of Oklahoma City. I've been in real estate for 15 years now, but I'm a little bit newer to the Oklahoma City area. I started in a small town about an hour and a half northwest of here, and then moved down here 2.5 years ago. And so I'm redefining myself in the Oklahoma City area now. And I work for, you asked who I work for. I work for Coldwell Banker Select.
Very cool, very cool.
Well, Kathy, one of the first reasons we just wanted to reach out with you was our connecting point. And all three of us met at the Inman Conference in New York in January. And I thought it was unique that you used the Inman app to reach out and be social. And I saw some of your posts on there, and specifically one that was referencing trying to meet 50 referral agents in 50 states. Yeah. So that's how you and I met, and we actually had to dance around for about an hour before we actually did meet because the vending hall and all that stuff was so busy, and those people are grabbing you, and you get into a lot of conversations. But if you would just kind of touch on that, on the aspects of your 50-state challenge, what you really wanted to get out of it, what your plans might be, after Inman. So what are your thoughts there?
Well, I'm a little bit of a conference junkie. I've been going to association conferences for quite a while, but I'm new to the Inman world. And so there were a few people that I've met through national association conferences that I saw that it was interesting because there were a lot of people at Inman that I'd never seen before and hadn't met. So I guess right in the first day, I thought I've got to meet somebody from every state because these are different people than my normal network people. So I made a list of all the states, threw it up on my Facebook cover photo, and started highlighting them as I was meeting people. And the cool thing was my connections through the National Association were like, hey, my friend, such and such is here. But, I've got a friend from my town there. Go find them. And so I was able to meet, some people from Oklahoma that I haven't met in the Oklahoma City metro area yet because I am fairly new to this board. So it was really fun. It was a cool experience.
Nice. And if you had to guess, how many states have you filled?
I made 35 states, so I came up a little bit short. One of the other things I didn't know, it was really good. And I left off Washington, D.C., and I met somebody from Washington, D.C., so that was an extra person. And then there's some international people at Inman that I didn't account for. So, I definitely met more than 50 new people and connected with more than that. But I'm going to have to change for San Francisco on how I track that. But
and since you mentioned an area like DC, last year I actually got a referral from Guam.
Oh wow, that's cool. Very cool.
Like all the way around the world. So small, such a small place, but you never know. So, but anyway, Alex, take it away there.
Yeah, no, it sounds like you did a really nice job. Getting to 35 states is probably better than I did. I was mostly just reacting. It's my first Inman conference. I ran into Bennett. It's how we met. It's how we connected, and he also introduced me to you. And we all got together on the app, and then found each other in the conference hall. And as my first big Inman event, and you say that you're kind of a junkie for networking through these events, over the years, what kind of tips and tricks would you give to new agents that are looking to go to these events? Do you feel like reaching out saying 50 and 50 is a great idea, or is there anything else that you would suggest would be a good tip for new agents that go to conferences?
The 50 and 50 was fun. And especially if you throw it out on social media, where other people are trying to help you. I mean, that makes it really easy. And it's easy to introduce yourself to people when you've already got a common connection. So
Yeah.
the 50 and 50 was just fun. I'm definitely going to do it again in San Francisco because I'm going to hit that 50 mark, and I'll probably try it in Washington, DC at the mid-year conference for NAR. I'm going to be busier at that one though, because I have governance meetings and things that I'll be attending. So it'll be a little bit harder, and I'll be with all the other state presidents there. So I'll have somebody from all 50 states. So even though my time will be shorter, I'll have somebody to make introductions for me too. So I don't know. I need to give that one some more thought. But as far as tips go, one of the crazy things from Inman where I met you all was, everybody swapping business cards and figuring out where your area is. But there were people that gave me business cards that now that I got back and I didn't write notes on the card, I don't know where they were from. So that would be my big tip, is when you're going to a national conference or a national event, you want to make sure that your business card has where you're from. And that was one of the things that I had learned over my years at NAR conferences. And so, like, you just hold up my card, I've got Oklahoma City there. So Oklahoma City, you think of me.
And the unique thing is that business card was a little different from the one that Alex just held up was different from the one that you gave me.
Yes. Yeah.
So that's pretty unique too.
I think it had like 4 or 5 photos from Oklahoma City area, but all of them say Oklahoma City on them somewhere. So even if you're not from Oklahoma City,
No, that's very memorable. I mean, it stands out. I have about 3 or 4 different ones that I use interchangeably. They're not like that. They just cover different topics or different, one you might take to a conference, but it wouldn't make sense to leave around here locally.
Yeah. Yours were great too, because you had a lot of information about what you do, which is helpful.
Mine were the most custom cards. For everyone watching, I gave Kathy a Moohoo card that I filled in with my name, what we talked about, and how to contact me, where I'm from. So as a rookie, that was my big takeaway is the business cards. We talked about in the last episode.
Yeah.
Also very memorable. I didn't forget you though.
Yeah, and also our love for podcasts. I think that was one of the big things that brought us together. It along with networking, I feel like when we meet people in these events, is that everybody is really all about it. Not even just at the conference, but you get that need to listen to podcasts at home or listen to Facebook Lives and just get to know and get in the know on what's happening outside of your area.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And that's, I was just mentioning to Bennett a few minutes ago, my state association just launched a new podcast called Talking Real. And it's talking about real estate in Oklahoma, but it's also talking about some national trends too, with Bitcoin and some of the wire fraud issues that are, not hitting just Oklahoma, but hitting the whole country. So it's hopefully got good content for, my friends across this nation, but also specifically some of it geared toward Oklahoma too. So
Absolutely.
And it's always interesting to listen to things like that from other areas of the country, because just because it hasn't hit Oklahoma yet doesn't mean it's not going to. So podcasts are a great way to stay in front of the trends.
Yeah, wire fraud has definitely hit rampant nationwide. We disclose it right off the bat when we meet people about disclosing that fact.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, we're starting to do that here too, as part of the buyer disclosures that they have to sign.
Exactly.
One of the things that I was also gonna, since you started into that, ask you about was just your time. Now you are the current president of the Oklahoma Association of Realtors, and that's a long name tag to have right there. You're pretty important. So we want to hear all about that. What's it like being the president of that association? And I guess as a quick follow up to that, I know, is that like, what's the term for that out there? It may be different in different states. And if you're transitioning back in as an agent, how did you transition out of that and see the ebbs and flows between leadership and role as a realtor, active realtor?
Well, in Oklahoma, the Oklahoma Association of Realtors has 11,000 members. So as their president, it's my job to represent them at national meetings, and to represent them also like at the state capitol and things like that. So as far as, transitioning in and out of my real estate role, Oklahoma is the low side of the medium-sized state, so we're still considered pretty small. So I'm actually listing and selling while I'm doing this. I would say my production level has gone down a little bit because I'm spending a lot of time, talking to legislators, reading bills, and I'm doing more traveling to national meetings and networking, bringing back some of those issues that are going on around the country back to Oklahoma, so my members here are aware of it. So sales are down a little bit, but it's so fascinating to know, what's going on.
Your relationships are expanding, though, aren't they?
Oh, relationships are expanding huge, and
So,
that's something that.
So your business, your production isn't going down. That's getting ready.
It's changing a little bit, but the relationships are actually what made my move from Enid to Oklahoma City so smooth. Is when I moved to Oklahoma City, and I moved to get closer to an airport because I was on a national committee and I was traveling a lot, and so I thought, well, I know lots of people in Oklahoma City. This is going to be great. Well, it hit me when I moved here that the people I knew were realtors, and so they weren't sending me business. But the people that I had met through the National Association were sending me business, because when they knew I was in the Oklahoma City area, then they were like, well, hey, I heard her speak, or I met her at this meeting. And so they started sending me business. So the referral network definitely made that move a lot smoother and a lot easier on my pocketbook than it would have otherwise.
Yeah, it seems like with that position and a lot of it sounds like you're a real selfless person, and you really do care about a lot more about the industry than just being the agent that's helping people buy and sell. Could you kind of unpack your motivation as to why you chose to kind of take this route as an agent? I know you've been in the business for 15 years, and kind of reflecting on those 15 years, and it seems like you've been in leadership for quite a while. What is that selfless motivation that it's really kind of your passion?
Well, it started back with my local AE in Enid. And right when I very first signed up, she did a really, really good job of getting people engaged almost immediately when you got your license. And so she said, hey, now that you've joined our board, what are your interests? What would be something that you'd be interested in doing? So she got me plugged in on a couple of committees before I'd ever even listed a house. And so I started getting involved with the board that way. And she also, the other thing she did was ask me for a RPAC check. And, and I'm brand new, and I'm having to pay her, my MLS fees and my board dues and all this stuff. And I said, okay, are we good? And she said, oh, I need one more check. And so she snuck that one in there too. She was a great mentor and friend. And then, once I had gotten involved in a couple of committees and she saw that, I would show up when I was asked and do what I was asked to do, then she got me involved with the board. And then I moved up in leadership with the board. But how I got more deeply involved is I actually listed a house for a lady. She was a widow, had lost her husband a few years earlier, and she was in her early 80s. And they had purchased this house. Gosh, they probably owned it for like 40 years and had it as a rental property. And she decided she wanted to sell it. And I knew it was real close to a flood zone. So I asked her if she'd ever had flood insurance on it. And she hadn't had a mortgage on it in years. So she didn't have flood insurance. But there was a huge flood that had happened several years prior in Enid. And she said, yeah, that flood didn't hit it. So in her mind, it obviously wasn't in the flood zone, because if that flood didn't get it, nothing would. And so come to find out, and her tenant who had been in the house had been a tenant there for 19 years, the most recent tenant. And so I asked her if we could get that tenant to purchase the house, and she thought maybe we could. And so I talked to the tenant, and we had some credit things we needed to get squared away, but we got it taken care of. Well, through the purchasing process, we found out that it was in the flood zone and it did need flood insurance. And that was back at the time several years ago when Congress was going with flood insurance. They were doing 30 and 60-day extensions, and they couldn't figure out what they were going to do with it. So I had a seller that was trying to sell her house that required flood insurance, a buyer that thankfully with the debt ratio, she's still qualified to buy the house. But then we got to the week before closing, flood insurance hadn't been extended. And I was in this position where, I got trying to get my seller out of this house, but do I push real hard and get this buyer into it, knowing that 2 days or 3 days later, she was going to be in default of her mortgage? And
Oh,
so
gosh.
I was like, this is the closest thing ever. So I went back to my local AE and I was telling her this whole story. And I was like, I said, how do we fix this? And she said, well, you need to write a bigger check to RPAC. And I was like, oh, okay. But that's when I started into the advocacy side and into, getting more into public policy and things like that. Because, the lady just didn't understand when her house hadn't flooded why we were insisting she needed flood insurance. And it was just that series of events really got me wanting to protect other people from going through the same thing.
So real quickly, explain to our audience exactly what RPAC is and what it does.
Okay. That was actually one of the first committees that local AE got me on, was RPAC. And I've since served as the RPAC chair for the state of Oklahoma. And that's the national side that I've served as in some RPAC committees. But what it is the Realtor Political Action Committee. And what we do is we ask all realtors to invest in RPAC, and the funds from RPAC go to helping elect legislators that are going to help us create public policy that protects private property rights, and not just for homeowners, but for commercial agents as well. And we also fight for things like affordable down payments. And 6 or 7 years ago, they were trying to go back to 20% down payment, but that would have kept a lot of first-time home buyers out of their homes for 14 years. It would have taken them that much longer to save up the amount of money required to purchase a home. And since we all know that home ownership is one of the ways that people build their net worth, we want people to have the opportunity to get into homes quickly so they can start building their net worth and provide a higher standard of living for their families. So that's what RPAC doesn't actually, ensure that we get flood insurance, but it helps us get people elected into offices that will help us make sure that flood insurance stays available.
And how's that gone so far, getting people elected?
Well, we actually just had a big success story here in Oklahoma.
Awesome.
Oklahoma, unfortunately, had I think we had the most special elections last year. We had a rough year in our legislature as far as people falling off for reasons that aren't fun to talk about in a live video. But that opened up the opportunity for a realtor friend of mine to run for state senate. And so we were able to support his campaign with RPAC dollars and get him elected into our state senate. So we just went into session last week. And so he's had his first week on the job, working at the state capitol, and our Capitol conference is this coming week. So we'll all be checking on him and making sure that he's still holding his head above water down there.
Very cool.
Yeah, and so you also just posted, I saw yesterday, that you won a nice award.
Well,
Would you like to share that with us?
I would love to share this with you. This is, I don't know that it's exactly winning award, but it's an acknowledgement for my investment in RPAC. And there's different levels you can invest in. And through several years of investing, I've now hit what they call the Hall of Fame, which is a $25,000 cumulative investment in RPAC over my career.
Wow.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I just hit silver last year for donating to RPAC, so I got a little carried away in the silent auctions.
Yeah, that happens sometimes. They get you roped in. I have a couple of tree pack jackets from Texas. When I go down there to their auctions, they do some fun stuff.
Mm-hmm. So I have a kind of a follow-up question to all this stuff. You sound like you've been really busy, really involved, got, different experiences behind you now. So what's really going to be next for you? And, like I said, is that going to be more of Realtor? Is that going to be more of leadership? Is it going to be a combination of both? And what are the things that you would like to see, just somebody who is in your position? What would you tell all of us that, or any other agents or people that might be involved in real estate? What do we need to be doing to make it a little bit better every chance and every opportunity we have?
Probably the biggest thing that we can do as agents is just be nice to each other. I mean, I am just blown away sometimes by how agents they get so territorial, and they, it's like, this is my neighborhood. I don't want anybody else listing in my neighborhood, or, this is my buyer. And it's like, guys, there's plenty of work for all of us out there. Just be kind to each other. And
it's been cutthroat lately.
It has.
To be honest, people are just unbelievable sometimes. I hope I'm not. But
well, and I think part of that has to do with this whole keyboard thing, and that's why I'm so intrigued by what you guys are doing, because you're taking the keyboard and social media and you're making it a positive, where you're getting out and reaching out to people and building other people up, and and that's so much the better way to go than to use your keyboard to just be cutthroat on people. So that's what I would strongly encourage everybody, all agents to do, and because you never know who you're going to have your next cross sale with. And one of the guys who was the state president of my local association the year before me, when I was still working at the Enid board, his theme for his year was co-opetition. And he's like, we are intentional because we have to cooperate every day with our competitors, because whoever you're competing with on a listing appointment may be the person you're working a cross sale with the next week. So it's
absolutely, yeah. Especially in some of these markets, like our markets, I think we've got a little bit over 3,000 agents in our board, but let's be honest. I'd say, a fraction of that is who's actually out there selling.
Right.
So that top couple hundred or whatever they're selling, probably the same in a place like Auburn, maybe even less,
And I think a big part of that is like the mindset, especially with new agents, or if it's a seasoned agent, and they look at everyone as competition and not co-opetition. And kind of how I kind of defeat that conversation a lot of times when someone's asking there, and you run into the agents, they're always like, "Oh, there's enough agents in this MLS, we don't need any more." Is go look at how many deals were done in the past year by a non-member, and look at the percentages that were for sale by owner, deals that were not done by agents in your MLS. So it's a huge chunk. It's the biggest portion of our MLS. Of our statistics in my county. So that's kind of where I always lead people, and we can all be competitive because there's a ton of business out there. Well, Kathy, it's been a pleasure kind of getting to know you and getting to know where you are, and it's really about your brand. I really believe, as we've listened to you talk about how RPAC and your passion for service beyond yourself and being selfless about it is really led to you having a very strong brand, and we wish you all the success moving forward.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got a few quick wrap-up items. So we're going to move into, we want to know, is there a book recommendation, favorite book of yours, something that you like to tell other agents or other folks about? It's really a book that's been dear to you that you can share with our audience.
And that's a hard question for me, because I am a book junkie. And so I read books all the time. The one that I'm doing right now, and we're actually doing it at my local board, is The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. And our whole board is going through that together. So
how awesome is that book?
That book is absolutely incredible. I love it. It probably, some of my other favorite ones are Start With Why.
Yeah.
And I find myself leaning on that a lot, and especially sometimes in the association world when people get tangents and they want to run off in a certain direction. It's like, okay, well, why? Why are we doing that? Why are we focusing on that? What's going to be the return for us? And so, those are great books. If people haven't read either of those yet, I would strongly recommend both of them.
Yeah, and The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, the way is it's a story. They give you a real life example with the tech company, and I just think it's awesome how they take you through the 5 dysfunctions and really break it down for you and take you through the pyramid. And that's a great book. That's a great book.
So good, even for people that don't like business books, because I know some people don't, and they're not my favorite, but
absolutely,
it's definitely good for just you kind of get drug into the story, and it takes you through it all. So it's really, really good, and it's really fun to go through it with a group of people, some of which I've worked with for a while, but some of them are kind of new to the group, and so it's been a really good team building exercise for us.
Yeah, absolutely. That's awesome. Well, hey, Kathy, as you wrap up here, I want you to tell our audience exactly where they can send their Oklahoma City referrals, and how they can reach out to you, leave them, with your phone number or email, however you'd like for them to reach out to you on social media if they want to connect and ask questions. So I'm leaving it to you.
Yes, I am easy to find on Facebook. I'm Kathy Fowler, okay, or you can search Kathy Fowler, and I'm there. I change my profile picture all the time, so it actually does look like me. It's not my high school competition. And then also the easiest way to catch me ever is through text. I've always got my phone nearby. Now, when I'm doing something like this or I'm with a client, I won't answer you, but shoot me a text and I'll get back to you. That's, for me, it seems like that's even more efficient than email anymore. I mean, email I'll get to eventually, but text messaging is quickest. And so my cell phone number is 580-278-4095. And so, and the other perk with me being the president of the state association this year is I can actually help anybody anywhere in Oklahoma. If it's not in my area, I know the people who are actively involved and busy in other parts of the state. So I can helping throughout the whole state.
That's awesome. Well, once again, we just wanted to thank you for connecting with us first at the conference and then jumping. Yeah, stalking each other. And then just hopping on here and just having an open discussion about some of the things that are important to you and what may be on the horizon. So I know that I'll be out at the San Francisco Inman, and so I'll catch up with you there if I don't find you before then. But once again, we just want to say thanks for coming on, and we'll be in touch soon.
All right. Well, and thank you guys too so much. And like I said, I'm very honored to be your second guest, and thank you for letting me do a plug for RPAC. That's always greatly appreciated.
Sure thing. All right. Thanks, Alex.